The quick fix mindset has ruined the NFL. Too many organizations can't resist the allure of the quick fix, and that's where things fall apart. What happens when the foundation isn't there, when the coaching isn't stable, when the rosters are incomplete, and the organization itself is chaotic? Even the most talented teams are set up to fail. Just like with shortcuts in life, shortcuts in football rarely lead to lasting success. Every house needs a strong foundation. If the foundation cracks, it doesn't matter how nice the house looks, it's destined to fall apart. Coaching is that foundation for an NFL franchise, but too often teams treat it as an interchangeable part rather than the cornerstone to success. Look at Tua Tagovailoa and his first few seasons for the Miami Dolphins. In his first 3 years in the NFL, he had 4 offensive coordinators. Yes, you heard that right. And no, they didn't switch coordinators mid-season. They literally started the season with co-offensive coordinators, 2 offensive coordinators at the same time. And as you can expect, it was a chaotic experiment. It's honestly hard to imagine how Brian Flores thought it would ever even work. Each offensive coordinator brought new systems, new playbooks, and new expectations. Instead of building a stable offense for their young quarterback, Tua was left scrambling to adapt year after year, and the result was inconsistent performances and stalled development. But now you compare that to recently with Tua, Miami finally gave him stability. A couple years with the same offensive coordinator, and Tua became a Pro Bowl starter and led the league in passing yards. And then there's teams like the Lions, like I mentioned before. Just a few years ago, this franchise was synonymous with losing seasons and wasted potential. They forced Calvin Johnson and Barry Sanders to retire. But under Dan Campbell's leadership, the Lions have developed a gritty, determined culture that has reignited their competitive edge. They've gone from perennial underdogs to playoff contenders. No, you know what? Super Bowl contenders, showing that consistent coaching and leadership can completely transform a team. Coaching is a critical piece of the long-term solution. Without it, even the most talented teams will struggle to achieve lasting success. But coaching is just one part of the equation. Even the best coaches can't make up for shortcuts taken elsewhere, like on the roster. Success in football doesn't just come down to one player. It comes down to the entire team. But too often teams focus on splashy moves or signing one incredibly expensive player while neglecting the glue that holds it all together. Joe Burrow and the Bengals made headlines when they drafted Jamar Chase, but they overlooked their offensive line, and there was plenty of jokes made about it. Thankfully for the Bengals, they were able to make it to the Super Bowl, but at what cost? Burrow has been one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the NFLs, and the lack of protection has led to injuries and missed opportunities. Some will say that the Super Bowl was good enough, but I beg to differ. Yes, they made the Super Bowl, but they lost. And since then, they've done nothing to show that they're going to be making it back to the Super Bowl anytime soon. The Miami Dolphins present another glaring example of this quick fix mentality. Over the past 2 decades, they spent an enormous amount of money on acquisitions like Ndamukong Suh, Jalen Ramsey, and Tyreek Hill. While these moves, sure, they create buzz and excitement for the fans and around the team, but they haven't translated to any postseason success. The team still hasn't won a playoff game in over 20 years. Splashy signings can grab headlines, sure, but without addressing core issues like offensive and defensive line, the result remained the same: unfulfilled potential and a frustrated fan base. Now you look at the Eagles and Jalen Hurts. The Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts not in the top 5, not in the top 20, not even in the first round, but the Eagles believed in him, so they built their roster from the inside out, prioritizing building a team around Jalen. They knew he was a dual threat quarterback. They knew they need to be able to run the ball, so what they do? They prioritized their offensive line, and then they drafted Devontae Smith, and then they got AJ Brown. Because of all of those acquisitions and the prioritization of the core of the team, Hurts led the team to a Super Bowl. But unlike Burrow's Bengals, the Eagles haven't gone anywhere. They've still been an 11, 12, 13 win team every single season, consistently contending for championships. A well-constructed roster amplifies the potential of every single player on the team. Without protection, balance, and depth, even the most talented teams can't reach their full potential. But even with great coaching and a solid roster, there's one more factor that can ruin everything: the culture of the organization. Culture sets the tone for success.
All right, and so this team's going to be built on we're going to kick you in the teeth, all right? And when you punch us back, we're going to smile at you. And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, all right? And we're going to stand up. And then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down, all right? And on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap, and we're going to get up. And then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down. And when we do, we're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
A strong roster and good coaching can only go so far if the organization itself is dysfunctional. Andrew Luck and the Colts are the ultimate cautionary tale. Luck was the generational talent of recent memory, but years of mismanagement left him unprotected and overworked. It wasn't just bad for Luck, it was a systemic failure that caused him to retire too early. Contrast this with Mahomes and the Chiefs. The Chiefs built a culture of stability, investing in coaching, roster development, and planning for long-term success. The result, multiple Super Bowl wins and a dynasty in the making. Another example of dysfunction, the New York Jets. Their handling of Sam Darnold perfectly illustrates their inability to develop quarterbacks. Darnold was an incredibly high draft pick and was thrown into a chaotic system with weak everything: bad offense, bad defense, bad coaching. There was no real support for Darnold there either. Once he started playing poorly, he got kicked out. He left. And now, with the Vikings, Darnold has shown flashes of the talent that made him a top prospect to begin with, thriving in a more stable environment with better players around him. And then, the Jets went and brought in future Hall of Fame quarterback Aaron Rodgers in a high-profile trade, expecting him to instantly turn the team into contenders. And to be honest, most of the NFL expected them to be contenders because they had Garrett Wilson, they had Sauce Gardner, they added Hassan Reddick, they had a whole bunch of pieces to make them a good team. Yet, with even Rodgers, the same organizational dysfunction has prevented the Jets from turning their immense talent into consistent wins. Culture isn't just a buzzword, it's the long-term investment that ensures everything works. When dysfunction is at the root cause of all of your issues, it infects every layer of the organization, setting even the most promising teams up for failure. The formula is simple, but it's not easy. Stable coaching, a balanced roster, and strong culture, it's not something you can just do overnight. Look at the Chiefs. They didn't rely on one player to carry them. They didn't rely on that one draft pick of Mahomes to be their saving grace. They thought it might be, so they decided to build a roster, build a team, build a culture that lifted him and the rest of his teammates up, that elevated everybody. Stop chasing shortcuts like the blue pill and focus on creating long-term foundation needed for sustained success. When all the pieces come together, the teams don't just win, they build legacies. If you liked the video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.